Listen. Short story long.
Welcome.
It could take your whole life.
Preach.
Develop clarity.
Second, patience.
If it scared you, you should probably do it.
Whatever you think you don't have, you have something else in its place.
Listen. Short story long.
Go, Woody, go.
Preach.
Listen.
Welcome.
Jay, welcome to the pod, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Of course. So for the listeners, I just want to announce a lot of times I say how I know people. Sometimes I don't know them at all. Me and you are workout buddies.
Absolutely. For
Yeah.
the past 8 months.
Yeah, it's great.
I've seen you work out every single day that I'm there.
Yeah. So we live in the same building. We both have trainers because we're fancy. But we have the same
Because we're
schedule.
lazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're in there at the same time, just pounding away at our souls, trying to get healthy.
Absolutely. I've loved the name of this podcast
Yeah.
forever. And
Have
I've
you?
listened in a couple of episodes, and I love how real the conversations are. So I was very grateful when you reached out, man.
Thank you,
I
man.
really appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm excited because I think if I'm not mistaken, I think Casey Adams connected us.
Yes, correct.
So we reached out anyway, and then I met you after that from the workouts.
Yes.
And we're like, hey, we're supposed to do the pod, right?
Yeah.
And then now we've known each other for 6 months.
Yeah.
And now we're making it happen.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
And what I told you, I gave you a little preface before we started, but the reason why I came up with the name was because I noticed that usually when I'm trying to rush through a story, I keep saying, oh, long story short, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah, long story short. So this is short story long
I
because
love
I
it.
don't want anyone to rush. It's the time to tell the full story. And so that's where the name came from.
Yeah, and I'm glad I get to be part of this new setup.
Yeah.
Because it looks cool. So,
Brand new.
Yeah.
Every episode it gets a little better.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I've been noticing there's new things every time. so-
Yeah, yeah. So now we're pretty close to done, I think.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, Jay. Obviously I want to also give you my background with your stuff. It's impossible not to see your content. You're literally everywhere. And I think I really, connect with the stuff that you talk about. And I think the messages that you're putting out there are incredible.
Thank you, man.
Of course. That being said, other than that and being workout buddies, I don't really know how you got here. And that's what I'm excited to learn. So I know at some point in your story you lived as a monk for years. I
Yes.
know, I kind of have these
That's
things
the most unrelatable part of my life. The rest of it's relatable.
but I love that because
Yeah.
for me, I try not to research too much for these because I want to genuinely learn.
nice.
So that's where I'm coming into this.
Yeah.
So let's start at the very beginning of where you're from, where you grew up. What was childhood like? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, awesome, man. So I'm born and raised in London.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who know London well, I'm from North London, from a place known as Tottenham. It has a very big football club that I don't follow, so just throwing it out there. But I was born and raised in London, and up until about the age of 14, I grew up in an Indian household, and I was the ideal son. I was a teacher's pet. I worked hard at school. I was like what you'd want. Hopefully, you'd want your kid to be
Yeah.
just well-behaved, well-mannered, did everything by the book almost.
Yeah.
And then at 14, I completely went the opposite way. And I think it was a mix of changing my circle
Yeah.
and also wanting to be cool and fit in and want to be different and want to be a risk taker and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so from 14 to 18, I kind of went through this phase in my life where I was just taking big risks, testing every drug, experimenting with relationships, just
Really?
going the opposite way. And I kind of saw this oscillating experience of two extremes
Yeah.
of having gone from being a good kid
Yeah.
to then being considered a bad kid.
Yeah.
And where my friends' mums were like, don't spend time with him anymore. Don't
Really?
spend time. Yeah,
You
to
were that kid.
Yeah, I was that kid. Yeah, exactly. I was that kid.
That's amazing.
And it was, I always look back at it and I think it happened because when I'm looking in hindsight,
Yeah.
it happened because I was involved and got surrounded by people that were interested in those things.
Yeah.
So it was my circle. And the second thing was I was looking for thrill and meaning in life.
Yeah.
And at that time, being good,
Yeah.
just being a good kid, didn't give me some meaning or thrill or passion or
Yeah.
drive. And unfortunately, at that time, I went off the rails to find it.
Yeah. It's so true, man. It's funny. I feel like we just following the rules for the sake of following the rules is boring and meaningless. Right?
Exactly. That's what was my life for the first 14 years.
Yeah, and it almost seems like not only is that a boring, meaningless life, but we also don't necessarily look up to people like that, even if they're successful, because it's well, what do I really learn from them? They just
Yes.
followed the rules. I almost feel like that ultimate like real wisdom comes from some sort of struggle or living in poverty or getting in lots of trouble and kind of being lost, and then finding why the rules truly matter and what rules truly matter. Because there also is a lot of rules that don't matter at all, and you kind of learn that, I think, through that process.
Absolutely.
That's funny, man. Do you think that you just naturally started to stray? Like there wasn't an event or anything that happened that made you say, "Fuck this"?
I don't think so. I think the event was that my father was always very hands-off, and therefore we have a good friendship relationship, but never necessarily like father-son relationship. So I get along a lot with my dad now, but I think at that time he was so hands-off that I didn't really have anyone controlling me or giving me a roadmap or saying this is what you could do next, etc. And then my mom was also my mom was far more involved, but it's your mom, and I was always pushing back and doing what I wanted to do. And so I feel it was more just the kind of environment I had. I wouldn't nail it to a specific event or anything like that. But I remember becoming friends with a few people, and I remember them doing things that, whether it was stealing or petty crimes or whatever. And I was just like, oh, that's fun. Like, and it wasn't about getting something, or it wasn't about making some money. It was just the thrill of what it felt like to do something.
Yeah, so much more fun than just getting good grades for the hell of it.
What
was there a reaction from your parents when that started to happen, or from your family?
One thing I really owe my parents was that on the day they'd find out. So I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a story of something that happened. So me and my friend and another one, he stole his mum's car keys, and we went joyriding in his mum's car.
What age?
We're about 14 or 15.
Okay. And is this maybe
17 years old to drive. So you've got to be 17 to get your license. Most people get their driving license by 18. We were 14 or 15 at the time.
Got it.
So definitely underage. He steals his mum's car keys. We jump in the car. We're driving around. His parents and my parents were out at this wedding. So we thought, they're going to be gone for a while. By the way, Indian weddings last for like 7 days. So we were like, okay, they're going to be gone for hours and hours and hours. So we thought, let's grab a car. Let's be cool. Let's drive around. So we're like pumping like Still Dre or whatever it was, like feeling like the coolest people. And I think the car was like, it wasn't even a good car. You know what I mean? It was, you wouldn't be proud of that car. But for us, it was like, we're 14 or 15. Just being in any car, we're pumping Still Dre. The car was a Vauxhall Astra, which is a British brand. So I don't even know what the equivalent in the US would be. But it's not considered like a premium brand. And so we're driving this car. We're playing Still Dre really, really loud. He's getting faster and faster and faster. Like, we're all having a great time. And actually in my heart at that point, I was like, I don't want to be doing this. Like, this feels wrong. Like, I was nervous, but I was trying to prove that I was cool and that I was like hip and that like I knew what was going on and I didn't want to be the odd one out. So I started joining in and feeling confident. My friend's going faster and faster and faster. And then we see one guy that he used to bully walking past us. And he shouts out some cuss words at this guy. And we're like laughing at this guy, and I'm feeling terrible again, but I'm laughing at him anyway. And then we literally go straight into, I just broke your mic. I just broke your mic. That was not the plan. We literally go straight into another car that was parked, thankfully. And we go straight into this car. Our car's completely written off. The car in front of us completely written off. At that, I don't even know if our car had airbags then. Like, I don't think it was anything. Luckily, none of us were hurt.
Wow.
Like, none of us had anything on us, and both the cars were completely destroyed in the sense that you'd never be able to drive those cars again. None of us had blood on us. None of us had, obviously we had whiplash, like extreme. And the worst thing that happened next was we crashed, and obviously people heard the sound because it was so harsh. There was an event hall next to us. And outside of that event hall, that was the event where the wedding was happening.
No.
Yes. So the wedding that our parents were all at, we crashed literally right outside of it, which I don't think we even had a clue at that time. And our parents come out.
So you didn't even know, not even when you crashed, you didn't look over and say, oh shit. It wasn't until they came out?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So we're just like, we were all like, oh crap. Like, obviously we're all freaking out that we just crashed into a parked car. We're freaking out because we're like, bro, what the hell happened to you? And he was like, oh, I wasn't looking. And he was trying to figure out why he crashed. But he lost control when he was trying to say cuss words to this guy outside. So he lost control. We go straight into this car. All three of us are like blaming each other. So the driver guy, my friend who's driving, he's like, oh, it's your guys' fault. You guys were like shouting too loud. And then the other guy's like, no, you put the music too loud. And I was like, guys, I'm sitting at the back. Like, I'm not even next to you guys, right? And so anyway, that happens. Our parents come out. The owner of that car comes out of his house.
Oh my God.
And I'm looking around going like, and all our family friends come out, like people we knew like from the community come out, and everyone's shaking their heads, and obviously our parents are embarrassed, and our parents are trying to talk to the guy who owns the car and saying like, sorry, it's our kids, and how do you explain it that these underage kids and all this stuff. And I was just like, why did I even do that? You know? So anyway, that's like a perfect example of a story, which I haven't shared anywhere else, by the way.
Thank you.
That I feel like sums up how stupid I was and the dumb stuff we got ourselves involved in when there wasn't really. And luckily, we're lucky that we didn't get hurt, but no one else got hurt. Like, it was lucky that no one was driving that car. It was lucky that no kid was crossing the road. It was lucky that our parents weren't in the car, right? Maybe if they were older, would it have affected them differently? Whatever it is. There's so many could-haves, would-haves, and ifs.
But I can't believe they were right there. That's like a movie scene.
Literally, they were right. They walked out, and I was like, oh, you're kidding me. And I've got family friends who still remember this moment, who'll bring it back up to me now and be like, you remember that day when you was crashing? I'm like, oh, thanks. Yeah,
like, shut up.
That was like 15 years ago, you know? Like, but it still comes back.
It's funny, man. Like, I wonder, because as we get older, you know, and we've both been through like things like that or phases like that in our lives. And so it's easy to look back at it now. We're relatively cool dudes, but we look back at it now.
You are definitely.
No, we both are. And it's easy to say like, that's so pointless. How could we teach young people to avoid that? But then I also ask, do you only really find the motivation to do good from doing bad? You know what I mean? Can you just have this perfect life? Is there even such thing as like embedding meaning and true understanding why not to? Because really what you're doing, like you said, you explained it perfectly. You're searching for something that means something beyond just good grades, or, you know what I mean? Like, do you think that's even possible?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a really good question. And yeah, it reminds me of the quote from Martin Luther King that we often say of, if you have nothing to die for, then you have nothing to live for.
Yeah.
And that's like me. Like, I was looking for something that I was ready to die for. Like, I wanted that thrill, that passion. I wanted to feel it every day. One thing I found over time, and this is something I learned fast forwarding to when I was a monk, and when we were talking about learning, we always talked about 3 types of learners. So the first type of learner or first type of student is someone who learns from other people's experience. And that person can just hear a mistake and they can realize it and recognize it. And that's just because they're at a state of consciousness and energy that allows them to learn from that. Now, I'm not in that group. I'm someone who's always had to make mistakes, learn from my lessons, have experiences. So the second type of student is someone who needs to experiment. Someone who needs to get it wrong. But as soon as you get something wrong or you have a lesson or an experience, you're like, okay, I got it now. Like, I'm not going to do that again. Right? And the third type of student, which is considered the worst, is someone who keeps making the same mistake again and again and again. And even if they learn, they never apply it. And so for me, I sit in the middle. I usually have made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I've tried to better myself and learn from them. And then I know not to make them again. But there is a group of people who, I do believe there are a group of people who can just watch or even listen to this conversation and be like, that was dumb. Like, they're just looking at me going, that was never cool, man. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I know I would never do that. And there are people like that. You know? And that's cool. But I think the majority of us fit in that middle category or the last one.
Yeah, that's true. And then this is just something that was interesting to me. You said that you were listening to Still Dre. Like, what types of, was the culture very influenced by American culture, or like what was cool? Who was the cool artist? Like, what did that look like?
So I just have to say this right now. When you grow up in London, you only consume American culture.
Got it.
So 99% of people that I knew, we consumed American music, American movies, American TV shows. So whether it was Friends, or whether it was My Wife and Kids, or whether it was, what else did we used to watch at that time? Like, even earlier on, like Saved by the Bell, like, you know, like that was the stuff that we used to watch. When it was movies, it was all the movies here. So when I first moved to the US, I was like, I'm in a movie. Like, everything felt like a set. Because for me, I've only grown up hearing American accents. I've only grown up seeing American police cars on TV. So that was, you know, that was a moment. And then music-wise, you only listen to US artists. So my favorite artist growing up was Eminem. Like, Eminem was my number one, you know, favorite artist. Listened to every album, knew every lyric. I used to love writing. And so then, it was Eminem, Nas, Jay-Z, Talib Kweli, Mos Def. Like, this is who I listened to growing up. And so it was all US culture.
That's amazing.
So you grow up listening to US and highly hip-hop culture, I guess. Both in fashion and style and music and everything.
For sure. And then does that mean, once again, you kind of alluded to it, but do you look at, do did you have a goal of moving to the US one day and think that's where all the action is?
No, so I never actually had that belief.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird that it's a really good question. I never actually had that. I really liked, and I think things changed as I grew up in London.
Yeah.
And this is a really contextual thing. So wherever you are listening to this or watching this, like wherever in the world you are right now, we all live in bubbles.
Yeah.
And bubbles exist anywhere and everywhere. And so my bubble in London was very much everyone I knew followed the system of you work hard, you get a good degree, you get married, you have kids, you buy a 4-bed, 5-bed house, and you live in the area.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the bubble I grew up in. So for me, I never met an entrepreneur until I was like 18.
Yeah.
Like I didn't meet someone who was doing something different until I was like 18 or 21. Like it took such a long time to meet people that are doing something outside of, like, I always joke about, like, growing up, I had 3 options: to be a doctor, a lawyer, or a failure.
Yeah.
Because everyone around me were doctors and lawyers. So that was my bubble.
Yep.
And so wherever you are in the country, in the world right now listening, everyone has that bubble.
Yep.
And sometimes you can't see beyond it. So I couldn't see beyond it.
Yeah.
So I never imagined life in America because I never even knew anyone who moved country.
Yeah.
You know, apart from my parents, obviously.
that's-
My parents
yeah.
moved to the UK when they were 16.
That's how I was with LA. Even in Ohio, you have a bubble. And then LA, I thought LA was like the end all be all and would have loved to live here one day, but no one around me. You
Yes.
know, it's the same thing. You get married, you move down the street.
Yes.
You know, and that's what you do.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't consider it because I say this, like, you can't be what you can't see.
Yeah.
And so if you've never seen someone do anything,
Yeah.
you never think that I can do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important that we allow people to, and I love what you're doing with the podcast. I'm trying to do the same with the podcast is how do you give people a broad set of real models or not even real models, just a broad set of humanity and go, hey, these are all your options.
Yeah.
You don't have to settle to be that person right there, right now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's so true. Do you think that like social media and that stuff has changed any of that, or has it made it worse? Like for, let's say, a 14-year-old kid now.
I think from that perspective, social media has broadened your opportunity, but I don't think it's broadened what people are looking at.
Yeah.
So I still think we're idolizing the same things we might have grown up on social media.
Yep.
So the same things are winning. And that was when I started making content. That was my goal with it. I was like, how do I make content that disrupts the mainstream?
Yeah.
And we get mainstream being open to the fact that there are far more alternative ways of thinking, living, and believing. And so I feel like social media has given the opportunity, like you can find out what it feels like to grow up living in Bali, right? You can see what it feels like to be an entrepreneur in Tel Aviv, right?
Yeah.
And all these foreign countries, you know what culture looks like, what food looks like. But it's very easy for us to just go and follow the people with the nice cars, the nice homes and everything. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff, but you can just, again, build your own bubble. Right. And so it's all about who you follow. Like who you follow is your bubble.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And so for me, I'm always trying to break my bubble.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you. Is like, is there anything that you do now?
Yes.
How old are you now?
I'm 31.
Okay, so at 31, as a full adult, do you have any practices or anything to break your bubble?
Yeah, one of my biggest ones is spending time with people who are not like me.
Yeah.
And not spending time with people who grew up in the same bubble as I did. So I get to experience new bubbles and new backgrounds. And really your bubble is your background, right? But for me, the word bubble makes sense because it encloses. So one of my biggest things, and I talk about this often when I'm at companies, but I think it will really apply to everyone listening today. I love this story of Mark Zuckerberg when he was stuck with the direction of Facebook.
Yeah.
He went up to his mentor and asked his mentor, what should I do? Now, Mark Zuckerberg's mentor happened to be Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool in and of itself.
Yeah.
So Mark Zuckerberg went up to Steve Jobs and goes, what do I do? Like, I'm lost with the direction of Facebook. This is 2009.
Yeah.
And Mark Zuckerberg told this story a few years ago when the Prime Minister of India visited Facebook in Silicon Valley. And so Steve Jobs could have told him anything. He could have said, go get investment. He could have said, go speak to Bill Gates. He could have said, well, he probably wouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
He could have said, like, go find venture capital. He could have said, let's have a meeting of tech geniuses.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing about Steve Jobs is he said, you need to go and live in an ashram, which translated is a monastery of monks in India for a day or two or a month, and you'll figure out what to do with Facebook.
Really?
Yeah. And that's a true story. Mark Zuckerberg told that story himself.
And did he do it?
And he did it.
Wow.
And he said that that's where he figured out connection and connectivity. And that's when connection became the goal of what he was doing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to tell the story promoting Facebook. What I'm trying to say is someone as amazing and as talented as Steve Jobs was able to see the value of alternative thought and opposing thought. So instead of going, you're in a tech business, we need to look at tech. It was like, no, why don't you go look at the monks over there? They may inspire you. And you see that like in Steve Jobs' life, calligraphy, like I'm looking around, there's so many Apple devices and it's like calligraphy helped him design Apple computers. People would have laughed at him like, what's calligraphy got to do with computers? But he could see so for me, this ability to see patterns where others see anomalies is what I love. So I like to sit down with people who I have a completely different background with. People come from a different walk of life. People are opposing to my methodology. Because that's going to help me think broader. Otherwise, I'm always going to think down my lane and my tunnel.
Yeah, that's so true. What's funny is I'm just realizing that, well, I know this, but one of my shortcomings is that I try to be as focused as possible. Like I think focus and clarity is so important, and goal setting and knowing exactly where you're headed. And I think that sometimes I think that anything out of my immediate focus and goals is a waste of time or is a distraction or is a whatever. And I think just remembering this weird, intangible, unexplainable power that getting out of that for a moment and then coming back to your thing has, I think that's something that I personally really need to work on. And I think that with all the preaching and that stuff on focus and goals, it's easy to lose that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think there's a way of doing both, because I'm like you too. Like I literally said that to my trainer this morning. He was like, Jay, you can pack a punch. We were doing a bit of boxing today. Because you can pack a punch. I was like, I don't think I'm the strongest person in the world, but I'm super focused. And that's what I said to him. I was like, when you're telling me to punch, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I don't think I'm the strongest person either, but I'm focused. So I'm hitting that target in the same place every time. And so focus is something I value too. So we share that. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to see how anything can enhance that focus. So I kind of see, I'm going to give probably a terrible analogy, but we're going to go with it anyway because it came to my mind. It's like when you've got dips on the side of food, like they don't take away from the main meal you're having, they just enhance the flavor. And so when I'm asking someone that I'm not used to in that area, they're enhancing what I believe in. And again, I'm looking at through the lens that they're seeing it. So when I'm speaking to my teachers, who a lot of which are monks, if I'm speaking to them about my business, I know they're never going to give me a money strategy answer. So I know not to listen with that ear. I'm listening from the point of view of like, oh, that's going to give me deeper intention. That's going to give me deeper meaning. It's going to give me deeper purpose and energy, right? I'm not trying to get the advice from like, oh, should I monetize that? You know, from a monk, because they're going to be like, well, I don't know how to do that, right? And so, and at the same time, I'm not going to go and sit with a tech giant and be like, how do I meditate every morning? So I think it's bringing in those experts, knowing what they're adding and what flavor they're adding. So I think that's a way of still being focused, but allowing people to enhance that focus.
That's huge.
But I like that point. It's cool.
I just think more than ever, for a lot of reasons, and I don't want to take it political, but like we're at a time when more than ever we need to get in other people's bubbles and get out of our own. You know what I mean? And I think that whether it's just for your goal or your job or your whatever it is, like getting out of your own bubble is more important than ever.
And I think some of us will get criticized for it. I think it's very easy to be like, oh, like, you know, like drama, why were you with that person? You know, like why were you like spending time with him or her? Like, don't you know that they, you know, whatever it is, right? Like, or like, Jay, like you're meant to be like positive and goodness, and you're spending time with this guy and that. And even like I had it, like when I decided to move from New York to LA. So I lived in New York for 2 years before I moved to LA. And people were just like, why are you moving to LA? LA's like superficial. Like you believe in deep stuff. And I was just like, I know a lot of deep people in LA. Like I've got a lot of good friends in LA that are deep and meaningful, and I think nice people. Like we connected the first time we met. We connect every day, and I love your energy. And I'm like, this guy's so cool. Like, you know, and so I feel like we have these perceptions and bubbles that we've made up from. We've built more bubbles from our bubble, and then we believe that bubble we've created is also correct. And we need to go burst those bubbles. And the only way to burst them is having a conversation. And sometimes you're going to sit down and you're going to be, oh, my bubble was right. And sometimes you're going to sit down and be like, I was so wrong. And
I'd say the majority.
The majority, I would say, is the latter. I was so wrong.
That's good stuff. Okay, so take me back to pre-18, before you kind of went off on your journey. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, as you got towards the end of that period of your life, what started happening that you feel like you knew you needed a change of some sort?
I think a big part of me started to just feel like I was always getting caught for getting into trouble, so I wasn't very good at it either. It's like, it's like at least get away with it. I was always getting caught, like whether it was at school or whether it was by the police or whatever. Like I was always getting found out. I was like, I'm obviously not very good at this.
Yep.
And not only not very good at this, I was just kind of like, this is not satisfying either because it's causing pain.
Yep.
And that's what I started to notice that, okay, I'm getting a thrill, but the thrill is temporary.
Yeah.
It's followed by nervousness, anxiety, and stress when you get caught.
Yep.
Or if you don't get caught, you're always thinking you're going to get caught.
Yep.
And so you're following, like you're always in panic mode.
Yeah.
Because like, what if someone sees me? What if someone knows I'm carrying this? What if someone knows I'm smoking this? Whatever it is. And then you're living in like stress and anxiety that whole time. And then after that, you're causing pain to your family. You're causing pain to other people. You're causing pain to yourself. And I started to recognize that actually my actions do impact others.
Yeah.
I may think they just impact me. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I went to jail. That's okay. But it's like, no, they impact people around me. Yeah. And they impact other people. And so I was starting to see a negative impact on other people.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I lost two of my friends, one in a car accident. One of my friends was a girl in a car accident, and another one of my friends to gang violence. Yeah. And he was lost in that. And I was just like, wait a minute, these guys were like my age, like a couple of years older. The girl was my age. I was like, they just died. Yeah. Like they just lost their life, and I'm wasting my life doing this stuff. Like out of all the things I could be doing, I'm doing this. Yeah. Right. And I was just, last night, this is just in my mind because I was at Justin Baldoni's premiere of his new movie, 5 Feet Apart. And the reason I bring it up is in the movie, it shows the story of, okay, I'm going to ruin it. It's a spoiler alert if you're going to go watch it, but two people who have cystic fibrosis and they can't touch each other because if they did, they would kill each other, like because of the bacteria. And the whole movie was about how like these people are valuing every breath they can because they don't know which breath is their last. Yeah. And all of us are just sitting here wasting our breaths. Yeah. And that message is to reiterate that message home that I came to a point where I was like, I'm wasting my life. Yeah. Like I could be doing so much more. Yeah. And at the same time, music was empowering me, inspiring me. And I was just like, I've got more to offer this world than this. Yeah. And I think everyone has that. Yep. Yeah.
And I think I think part of what fuels people to keep doing that stuff, which seems counterintuitive, is that feeling eating away at you that you know you're worth more. Yes. Right? And like knowing that you're not living up to what you're capable of almost makes you double down on the negative, right? Yeah. What just for the listener and for myself, what was like the worst that it got? Like was there a time or how bad into no man's land were you at that age?
I got suspended from school for 8 months, so which is a fairly long period of time. Yeah. And I'll tell you what happened. Again, I don't think I've shared this anywhere. I've been suspended from school for 8 months for violence, crime, theft, that kind of stuff. My school was a good school. I went to one of the best schools in the UK. I worked hard to get in. It's not paid for, so my parents weren't wealthy growing up. So it wasn't a private school, but it was a top performing school. Yeah. And I got into all this trouble at school, and the school basically wanted to report me, but they couldn't because of their reputation too. Yeah. And so I was 8 months, suspended from school, nearly expelled. And my friend who I committed the crimes with and messed around with, he told all my friends that I snitched on him, which I hadn't. Yeah. So he'd actually snitched on me, but he told all our friends that I snitched on him. Yeah. So not only did I get suspended from school, I lost all my friends because my friends now thought I was a snitch. Yeah. And I didn't understand because it was only afterwards that I found that out. I was like, wow, what a mastermind, right? Like, what a genius. Like, not only did he snitch on me and we both got caught. Yeah. So when they approached us and were like, who did it? I was like, none of us did it. Yeah. And they asked him and he was like, he did it. Yeah. And right, so I lost what is it called? The prisoner's dilemma. Like I lost that. Yeah, and then afterwards I was like, no, we both did it. When I found out that he'd blamed it on me, I was like, no, we both did it. Yeah. And then after that, the next step was like, okay, well, you're both getting suspended. So we both got suspended, but then in that time, he went and told all our friends that I snitched on him. So anyway, total mastermind. Yeah. And then I lose all my friends. So now I've lost my school for 8 months. I'm studying like outside at home. I'm not allowed to visit school. It's like I'm 16 years old. I'm doing what's known as our GCSEs. I don't know what you have the equivalent here. And they're really important for what you study later and getting into university and all the rest of it. So it's important exams. I'm studying at home. My mum has to go and pick up my work from school every day. So she has to drive to my school, pick stuff up because I'm not allowed in a 1 mile radius of my school. Yeah. And so I've lost all my friends. I'm away from school. My parents think I'm an absolute idiot because they're like, we didn't raise you like this. Like, what is wrong with you? Yeah. And so I'm at a point where I'm pretty lonely. Like I'm pretty alone. No one believes my version of the story because they heard it second.
Yeah.
And everyone's parents are telling them not to talk to me. So I couldn't talk to any of my good friends at school because all their parents are like, don't pick up the phone to that guy. Like, he's just been suspended from school.
Yeah.
And so it's dark, it's lonely, and that never helps.
Yep.
And so if anyone who's listening right now, whenever you've been in that moment where you're like feeling lonely or whenever, that's usually the rise of stuff going the wrong way.
Yep.
And that's where I got really fortunate. Like that was the turning point. So that's how bad it got.
Yep.
Totally lonely, total anxiety over, I don't have any friends, no one trusts me, no one believes me.
Yep.
Who do I even communicate with? My parents think I've wasted my life and my school. What's going to happen with my education? Like, does this mean I'm never going to get a job? Does this mean I'm never going to make money? And at that time, I'm working at a supermarket, like so the equivalent of Walmart,
Yep.
like to pay, like just make money, be out of the scene and just figure life out.
Yeah.
And I'm broke too. Like I haven't got any money either.
Yeah.
I'm 16 years old. So that's as bad as it got.
Yep. And are you at that point? Are you like doing drugs and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, I was experimenting. So my thing with drugs is I've experimented and never gone deep.
Great.
So luckily, I say I never got into addiction, but I experimented. And actually, one of the biggest things I saw was at one point we were doing a lot of horse tranquilizers and a bunch of other stuff.
Yep.
And one of my friends, we went to see his aunt who was a heroin addict, and we saw her have a fit in front of us.
Yeah.
And see, that was me learning the first way where I was like, that's
Yeah.
not going to be me, right? Like
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't have to go that far to learn that lesson.
Yeah.
I saw someone who had a fit in front of me. We were so scared. Luckily, she was at a care home, a care facility, etc. So the carers came and took care of her and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But we were like, oh my God. Like
Yeah.
I was like, that was like the most traumatic experience of my life, like seeing someone break down. So that's as bad as it got. And I never got addicted. So that's not been my journey. My journey is not one of moving from addiction in a way. It
Yeah,
was more
yeah.
experimenting and testing.
Yeah,
myself.
yeah. Thank God.
Yeah.
Because that just seems like once you go down that path, it's a whole nother layer, you know?
Yeah, and I've got friends who've done that. So like I had one of my good friends on my podcast, Russell Brand.
Yep.
And Russell Brand wrote a book last year called Recovery, and he's been sober now, clean from alcohol and drugs for 14 years.
Yeah.
But he was a deep addict.
Yep.
So when he shares his story, I'm like, oh yeah, I was nowhere near close to
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, anyone who is struggling with that, it may not be my expertise, but I know he has a lot to say about it.
Yeah.
So,
So then the obvious question is, how do you go from that place to becoming a monk?
yeah.
Was that,
exactly.
were they even lined up like that? Was it from this
Yeah,
to that?
pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It came to a point where I was getting in way too many fights. I was getting kicked out of way too many nightclubs, like just dumb stuff, like not stuff I'm proud of at all, stuff that I look back on. I'm just like, wow, I was that sad, you know? That's how and you're right. We look at it that way now.
Yeah.
At that time, you didn't know any better. And to me, genuinely, it all comes down to role models.
Yep.
It all comes down to who you see in your life.
Yep.
And at that time, I idolized people who had stuff and money and who looked like they had sacrificed stuff and looked like they were working hard and been through pain. And even if that was real or not real, like, I mean, I didn't grow up in the ghetto, like, you know, but you pretend like you do.
Yep.
And you start looking at life through that lens. But I was going to speak, I was going to listen to entrepreneurs, CEOs, celebrities who went from nothing to something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always fascinated by rags to riches stories. And I remember reading a ton of biographies. I remember reading The Rock's biography when I was like 14.
Yeah.
I remember reading David Beckham's biography, who I'm a big fan of. I remember reading like all these autobiographies and stories of people who went from nothing to something.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like I like that. Like that connects with me, right?
Yeah.
And so I was going to these events that were held every week at my university that I went into. And every week they'd have a new person speaking about their story. So I'd be like, oh, wow, how did you do that?
Yeah.
And that's why what's great about the podcast too. Like, you know, this podcast, you are interviewing people who can share their stories.
Yeah, I want like little mini biographies.
Yeah, exactly. Which is beautiful because now you don't have to go to a university that has that.
Yep.
You can just tune in right now, which is a massive blessing through
Thank
digital and social media. And so I was going to these, and then I found out one week a monk was going. And I told my friend, I was like, what am I going to learn from a monk? Like, what does a monk have? And I was like, my friend was getting into spirituality. And he was like, no, we should go. Like, I've heard he's amazing. And I was like, look, if we go to a bar afterwards, I'll come. Like, that was my rule.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, fine. Okay, done. And so I went to this event expecting nothing. And that night changed who my role model was. And it happened not because of how he looked. Like he had an Indian accent, he dressed in robes, but he was captivating, he was charismatic, he had amazing energy. And I believe it was the first time in my life I'd never met anyone until I'd met people that were rich. I'd met people that were beautiful. I'd met people that were strong. I'd met people that were influential. But I don't think I'd ever met anyone that was truly happy. Yeah. And that was one day with that experience, I was like, I think he's happy. Like, I'm not saying he is. Yeah. I was like, what does this guy have that I'm listening? Like, I'm sitting there going, what does this guy have? Like, he doesn't look cool. He doesn't dress cool. Like, he obviously doesn't have any money. Like, what does he have? I was like, I think he's happy. Mm-hmm. And then I found out he gave up jobs at Google and Microsoft to be a monk. So I was like, really? Oh, so he's not done this because he's dumb and broke and can't do anything. Yeah. He's done it because he's super smart. And so I was like, all right, I want to spend time with this guy. So I went and introduced myself afterwards. We connected and I was like, I want to know what you've got. Like, I want to come and experience that. Yeah. And I'd always had this feeling of wanting to shadow people or be around people that had things I wanted. Yep. And, you know, like not all of us can have Steve Jobs as our mentor. Not all of us can have Richard Branson as our mentor or drama as your mentor. But the thing is, A, you can read about all those people. B, now you can listen to all those people through podcasts and all the rest of it. Yeah. And now there's a lot more information out about their stories. Yeah. So you can be mentored by people you've never met. I have to throw that out there. Like, you do not need to say, oh, I don't have access to XYZ. Yep. That's an excuse. You do have access to them. And I genuinely believe you can be mentored by someone you've never met. For sure. So for me, I did meet him. And so I started spending the next 4 years, aged 18 to 22, all of my summer holidays, half of them living as a monk in India and half of them in bars, steakhouses, and working at a corporate company in London as an intern. So I was literally doing my first ever like A/B split test. Like I was like literally going from I would go from suits, steakhouses, bars, all the rest of it, to then living the other, like the fast life to the slow life. Yeah. And I was just testing the fast life to the simple life. How did you even like schedule that? I just broke up. So in the UK, you get around, I think like 3 months off summer. Got it. So I would get a 6-month internship, which is what internships are usually like for corporate companies. Yeah. And then I would go for the other 6 weeks or a month or whatever it was. And so I was just using all my spare time or Christmas holidays, whatever it was. Yeah. I was so fascinated by him. And I was like, if I spend time with him, maybe I'll learn some stuff. Yeah. And so it was more just like when you see someone that you're inspired by and you just want to learn from them, you go follow them and watch them, just how you're following on social media. Yeah. I was just doing it in real life. Yeah. But that's all I was doing. I was pressing the follow button. Yeah. I was like, I want to follow this guy around because he's got something that I think I need. Yeah. And to me, looking back and now, it was happiness. It wasn't that he had, I mean, he was powerful, definitely. He's captain, he still is, but he wasn't rich. Yeah. He wasn't famous, or he wasn't beautiful. Yeah. You know, no offense. I mean, but, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't those things. That wasn't the thing. That wasn't the thing, yeah. And so did you go, like you were full dressed in robes? So when I was doing the testing thing, you didn't have to do that. Okay. I would just go in normal clothes and I would be a monk. So I would wake up at 4 a.m. I would sleep on the floor. Yeah. I'd meditate for 4 to 8 hours a day. I'd eat the same food they did. I did his schedule. Yeah. Right? So I look at this as literally, it's like shadowing an entrepreneur. Yeah. Like it's the same mindset. All I was doing was shadowing someone that I thought was amazing. Yeah. So if someone came and followed you around for a week, that's what I was doing, and I was doing his schedule. Yeah. So if he was exercising and doing yoga, I was doing yoga with him. Yeah. If he was reading and studying ancient literature, I was studying with him. And so I got to go super deep quickly. Yeah. And so then when I graduated at 22, I decided to turn down my corporate job offers and become a monk for real. That's when I shaved my head, wore robes, and actually took the real path. But in the test period, I still looked like me and dressed like me and was doing everything normal. Yeah. Right? I would still come back and still be experimenting with life. I wasn't living as a saint for those 4 years. I was literally going between the two lives. This is the other interesting thing or important thing I think to say is like, did he just let you do that because you asked? Literally, he was just like, wow, this guy's like got desire. It was desire, right? Yeah, yeah. He wasn't like, oh, this guy's a monk. Like this guy's a future monk. I had no traits of being a future monk. He just thought this guy has desire. Yep. And I'm willing to facilitate that. Yeah. And I think that's what we forget, that when I see, and I'm sure you see it, when I see people with raw hunger and desire, I always want to reciprocate. Yeah. Because I'm like, you can learn the talent, you can learn the skills, you can change because you want to. Yep. And sometimes you see people have all the talent, all the skills, but they have zero hunger. Yeah. And I've been talking about it with a friend recently that wanted to start a business up together. And out of all the businesses I've launched, that's the one that's gone nowhere because I've been like, well, where's the hunger? Where's the desire? Yeah. And that's been, for everything that I'm part of, I've seen that hunger and desire has done way more. Yep. But you're right, it was just asking. Yeah. And he said, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the important example. Yeah. And then I guess after doing all that time, half and half, and then finally like coming to this moment where you have to choose one path or the other, what was the thing that made you choose to actually commit on such a deeper level? I think it was that when I was doing the 2 lives, I got to see what life looked like at both ends.
Yeah.
So I got to see what like a cool life, working in the city, wearing a posh suit to work every day, driving a fast car, you know, having a beautiful girlfriend at the time, like all that kind of stuff. I got to see what that felt like.
Yeah.
And then I got to see what it felt like living as a monk in India. And it's so weird to say it. And this is why I believe that more people should have what I call immersive experiences. Like when you think you want to be an entrepreneur, that's different. Go and work with an entrepreneur for a week and then think if you like the process, not the result, right? Like don't look at the chains and the car and the home. Look at whether you like what time that person wakes up. Like we're in the gym every week together, right? At the same time every week.
We're committed.
We're committed. And I'm sure you're here today. We're in your space in your studio. Like you're committed. And I think because I'd done that for 4 years, actually making the decision was easy because I already knew what I was getting myself into. It's kind of like dating versus marriage. It's like if you've never dated, you don't know you want to spend the rest of your life with someone. And so I had dated for the last 4 years with both these lives. And then I was like, okay, I prefer this one. That's literally it. Now, I'm not telling you to cheat on people and date 2 people at a time. The analogy applies to this. But the point being that if you go and experience life, decision making becomes easy. If you're trying to do it all with theory in your head of like, crap, do I become a monk or do I become a finance person? Like you'd never figure that out. But when you go live it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I felt happier doing that. And that's what it was. I felt happier. I felt I was going to have a bigger impact on the world because we were not just meditating all day. We were building food distribution programs, charity, philanthropy programs. Like we were doing work in the world to help people. And that's where I got most activated. Like I'll tell you what, actually, this is it. This is the true answer. The reason why I decided to become a monk was I wanted to study everything about philosophy and life. And I wanted to be able to live it for real. And so I was addicted to learning about wisdom. And the second thing was, I was like, I want to use my life to have a meaning and impact in the world. And at that point in time, I'd not seen people do that through business. I'd not seen people do it through entrepreneurship and success. I'd only seen people do it in that way. And so now that's different. I believe you can have an impact through business, etc. But at that time, I'd not seen that.
And this is what I want to try to wrap my head around too, is like if you put yourself back in your brain at that moment, like what were your ambitions? You kind of just said it, but I mean like, were you thinking, I'm going to go become a monk for the rest of my life? Or were you like, this will help me figure out how to do this bigger thing?
My genuine, honest thing was like, I'm going to be a monk for the rest of my life.
Really?
As a monk, I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to build charity projects. I'm going to go and speak to people. I'm going to go help people. I wanted to do it all as a monk because I felt that I say this often that you can't take the world further than where you visited internally. And so like my thing was like, if I really want to help people deeply, I need to go super deep. And if I don't go super deep, how the hell am I to help anyone? Right? It's like, if you're not a millionaire, how are you going to teach someone how to be a millionaire? It's not possible. You can't do it the other way around. It doesn't make sense. You can't be coaching how to be a millionaire when you're not one. And so my point was like, if I'm coaching people on happiness, but I'm not deeply happy and I don't understand what that means, how am I going to do that? And I thought I'd do it as a monk for the rest of my life because I was just so fascinated with that lifestyle. And it sounds crazy now, like even now when I live a very different life, I'm like, wow, like I can't, but I think we're impressionable when we're young. And you get excited about something and it gives you meaning and it gave me that thrill, so.
And how different is your life now than what you envisioned?
It's different in this, it's very different. Like first of all, I live in LA and in Hollywood, so that's part of it. The other one is that I do have material objects. So at that time, I lived out of a gym locker for 3 years. I had 2 sets of clothes, you wear one, you wash one. Right, you don't own your own devices. You don't own like your own stuff. Like you share, and you know it's a communal living environment. And now it's like I have my own devices. I have a car. I drive. I live in a nice place. Like all those things. But that was also a principle I learned as a monk, that everything can be used for a higher purpose if you see it that way. And so for me, my life has changed, but inside it hasn't changed. So it's changed externally. I don't have shaved head anymore. I like fashion and dressing up and all the rest of it, but it's like inside I feel exactly the same. And I think that's what it's about for me. Like it's a mindset, it's a lifestyle, it's a soul set, right? It's not about what you're wearing and where you grew up and what you look like. Like it's not to do with that. And I know that because now I still go back for 21 to 30 days every year. Go back and meditate. I still meditate for 2 hours a day every day.
Really?
And so so it's such a big part of my life that I still feel the same. And I'm married now too. So that's another area of my life that I've added. So it's completely the opposite. And then it's completely the same. So and that's what's made me realize that this life is way beyond externals, man. It's like, it's so much more internal. And that's the exciting bit.
That's what's so cool about you, especially for a guy like, so me, like guy who grew up skateboarding and all of this shit was way beyond my imagination,
Yeah.
to now got into meditating a couple years ago and do it for 10 minutes a day. I think the thing that's so cool about you to me is you prove that you can be both things at once. So I think
man.
most people think like, well, I'm not even going to download that meditation app and try that because I'm not a Buddhist.
Yeah.
Like, what am I? Some weird Buddhist? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh,
exactly.
and you just, people thinking like, well, if I even dabble in that road, it's going to define me as that.
Yes,
Where
yes.
you really embody both things at once. You know, you're like a cool monk.
Thank you, man.
You're
I
like-
appreciate,
you know
I
what I
appreciate
mean?
that, man. That's very kind of you. And it took a while for me to even reconcile that, like to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because for so long I was guilty. Like when I left, I was like, oh crap, money's bad. Like only greedy people have money. And that's not what monks think, by the way. That was my mindset.
Yeah.
That was conditioned. Like, oh, if you want money, you have to be greedy. Like if you want to make money, you got to. And that was my mindset. That's not what monks think at all. Because monks believe that everything is neutral and everything can be used for a higher or lower purpose.
Yeah.
So money is neutral, fame is neutral, strength is neutral, beauty is neutral. All these things are neutral.
Yeah.
And what you use them for gives them meaning. So if you use money to help people and serve people and make people's lives better, money's amazing.
Yeah.
But if you use money to screw people over and stab them in the back and betray them, of course, money can be the death of you.
Yeah.
So it's both way rounds, right? So for me, it took me a while to figure that out. And now I feel most at ease and content with who I am.
Yeah.
And I know that the people closest to me get that. And like, I really appreciate that coming from you, because I'm like, I'm glad people get that. And rather than see it as like, oh, you just sold out.
Yeah.
And so that was the energy in the beginning when I started out.
Yeah.
But I realized I needed to create a real life where there could be a real pathway for other people to recognize that you can have meditation and money.
Yeah.
You can have success and sincerity. You can be strategic and be intuitive. Like you don't need to choose. Like it's not like you're either a data person or you're a meditation person. Do both. Like I love data, but I also love intuition.
Yeah.
And I think both play amazing together.
Yeah, you're an incredible example of that, man.
Thank you. That's
'Cause
very kind of you.
That's what I was saying. The reason why I explained sort of where I come from is because it's ultra, especially like skater mentality with Ohio, with like, it's just ultra like, nah, that's some other shit. And I
Yes,
think you do it in a way that's so unique and so cool. Like it's not, you look cool. You look like
Thanks,
a normal dude. You look like, oh, he could be my friend. You know what I mean? Like
Thanks,
it doesn't,
man.
you didn't show up today in robes. Like, trust me, man, this is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And I appreciate that. And that's the goal. Like I think I want people to recognize that you can have higher values, beliefs, and a purpose and still you can be in this world, but not of this world.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful way to do it. And also with you too, like I really feel like we find and connect on human things. And when we look at that, that's where we build relationships. And like, you know, I mean, you talked about the skater thing. So growing up, being a skateboarder was like my biggest dream.
Yeah.
And I was terrible. So my parents got me a skateboard. I was the kid with the elbow pads, the knee pads, and I used to be overweight as a kid.
Yep.
So I used to fall over all the time.
Yeah.
So I never became a skateboarder. But by like fashion, I was always like skateboard fashion, like
Yep.
skateboard shoes. Like I still love skateboard fashion, but I've never been able to skateboard. So anyway, when you brought that up, I was like, oh yeah, skateboard.
Yeah, that was my life.
Yeah, I
man.
get that, man. Like Pharrell, like look at Pharrell and Lupe Fiasco. And I was like,
yeah.
oh yeah, these guys are like,
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing. Like I don't think it's about living between two worlds. It's about one is a tool and a mechanism that you need to have in your life. Like you need to have money, you need to have drive, you need to have a business, you need to have all that stuff.
Yep.
But it's not going to have meaning without the other side.
Yep.
And that's my point.
Yep.
And so I talk about happiness and success as being two different things. You can be successful and not happy, and you can be happy and not successful. I want both.
Yep.
So I'm doing both.
Yep.
But I know that they're different and separate,
Yep.
that they're not related to each other. Right? Your level of success does not correlate with your level of happiness. And your level of happiness does not correlate with your level of success.
At all.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Barely anyway. Yeah.
And how, I mean, I got to ask the obvious question. How do you I think that is the age-old problem, right? That's why all this self-help stuff works, and these type of podcasts have exploded, and get rich quick things and the key to happiness. Like, why do you think, it's such an obvious question, and I hate to ask it, but like, where do you find it? Like, if I'm just going through my life and I'm like, you know what, maybe I am successful, maybe not, maybe medium level. Like, where do you find that thing that's lacking, that purpose, that meaning, that deeper connection that you speak of? How can I start to go pursue that? If I don't want to go to India and become a monk,
Yeah. No, don't do it.
I got kids, let's say, I got a job, I got
Yeah.
but what can I do? What direction do I go to start
Yeah.
trying to find that in my life? Just
Yeah.
get a little piece of what you have.
Absolutely. So there's three key areas to make it really simple.
Yeah.
One is daily habits. Like there are daily things you can do, like waking up with gratitude, sleeping with gratitude. I did that as a monk all the time. We were trained to do that as monks. Daily habits and rituals that you give in your own life. Because it's not about whether you have habits or don't. Everyone has them. It's whether they're good or bad for you. So like you may say, oh, well, I don't believe in daily habits or daily rituals, but hey, wait, you drink a cup of coffee every morning. That's a habit. That's a ritual. Oh, wait a minute, you wake up and turn the news on first thing. That's a habit. That's a ritual. Oh, wait a minute, you wake up, roll over your bed and pick your phone up. That's a habit. That's a ritual. So it's not about whether you have so saying have a daily habit and a ritual is not a woo-woo spiritual thing. You have one. It's whether that's serving you or not. So for me, it's having a daily habit that improves your happiness. Gratitude has scientifically been shown to improve happiness. We all know we feel happier when we're grateful for specific things. Gratitude means to be specific. So gratitude isn't I wake up and go, I'm so grateful for the air, because you don't really mean that. If you really mean it, you should. It's amazing. But none of us are feeling that every day. Like I don't walk out and go, oh my God, like I can breathe. We should, but we don't. And so find out things that you're specifically grateful. And I always tell people, find people, places, and projects that you're grateful for in your life. And that really grounds it in real stuff that we can all think about, right? So gratitude and daily habits. Daily habits can be meditation, it can be gratitude thinking. It can, it can be anything, one of those. The second thing I'd say, it's in your human relationships. So the first one's habits, the second one's human relationships. Make sure you're surrounded by people who empower you. Like, I was excited to come to this conversation.
Thank you.
Because I'm like, I'm going to get to learn from you. We're going to bond. We're going to, deepen our connection. Like, I'm going to make a new friend. Like, I want to be around that energy. I don't want to walk into environments where I'm constantly feeling like, oh God, why am I here? And so we hear it all the time, but genuinely your relationships, Harvard's 75-year-old study suggests that human relationships is the number one reason people are happy or not. I went to Sardinia earlier this year, middle of last year. Sardinia's in Italy. It's a blue zone. Blue zones are the places where people live the longest in the world, and the most amount of people live over 100. The number one reason they said that is community. That's a big reason why people live longer and live happier lives. So for me, it's find that human connection and community. And please don't settle for your family. Like, it doesn't have to be your family. Like, there are friends, and then there's family, and then there are friends that become family. And my point is, go find that community. Like, so many people are like, I hear this all the time, like, Jay, my family's negative. I'm surrounded by negative environment. I'm like, yeah, but we don't live in a world where that's your only option anymore. You can find tribes and communities anywhere. And so everyone can do that one. And the third one is finding that higher purpose. And that comes from doing a lot of stuff. It comes from trying a lot of stuff out. And then when you do stuff, reflect and go, how did that make me feel? Like, just do that. Like, try lots of stuff out. Like, I went and became a monk. I've worked in the finance world. I now am in media. I've tried so many things out. And after any of them, I just ask myself, did I like that or did I not? And even when I meet a new person, I'm like, do I like that person or do I not? And if you just ask yourself, you usually get a good gut instinct and reaction of what you think and how you feel. And that's just the best way to know whether you like something and it's your purpose or not. And I think we don't ask ourselves the question. We keep asking everyone else, like, what's my purpose? What's my purpose? So just ask yourself, how did that feel? Right? Because their feeling is going to give it all away.
Yeah, man.
I hope that makes it simple. I mean, there's so much stuff I could say about that.
I'm sure. No, that's great. I think, and I even think the biggest thing is just being aware of it and realizing that these things can change and can be worked on. I think that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I hear you, Jay, but you don't understand how my dad is. Or like, but no, my life really sucks. And it's like I think just gaining the awareness that you can strengthen the muscle of being thankful for what's in your life every morning, or you can, build relationships outside of your family. You have way more options than you think.
Correct.
And I think people just kind of take, a lot of times, what's the hand that's dealt to them. And it's easy to look at that negative. It's really easy to look at all of our lives as super negative. You can do it if you want to.
Exactly. And imagine it this way. Imagine you woke up tomorrow morning, and this is super morbid, but it's really extreme, and I hope it resonates. Imagine you woke up tomorrow morning in a prison cell. And you didn't know where you were. Would you try to find a way out? I think you would. I don't think any of us would just sit there and go, all right, this is my prison. It's a prison cell. What to do? This is life. Let's just sit here. And that's what we do. We accept something to be a prison. And we're saying there's no key. and there's no way out. And it is it. And I feel that and I resonate. Like if you're listening and you feel that way, I get that pain. I've been there. Like that was me in my teens. I've still felt there now. I've had so many limiting beliefs that are like prisons in my life. Like I've been there even now I have them. It's not like something that disappears. It's not like one day you're not a monk and one day you're a monk and everything disappears. I'm still working through it every day. The point is I just now have the tools to deal with it. And so my point's like when you break through the first cell, you just get confidence that you can break through the next one. And then when you find yourself in a bigger prison, you're like, oh wait, what did I do last time? Oh, I did this. Oh, and then I did this, and then that memory and that muscle gets stronger. And so every time you're in it, and the best thing, if you've never been to an escape room to experience how I feel about this, go to an escape room. I love escape rooms. Go and do an actual escape room, and you'll realize how much your muscle for finding new alternative ways of getting out gets stronger. And I noticed that the first time I went to an escape room, I was like, this is so hard. Like I'm still bad at them, but I get better every time.
It's true, man. Yeah, that was a great analogy. It's so true. Okay, so how do you, so then you were a monk for how long? 3 years, you said?
3 years, yeah, full time.
So then you go off into the world. What's your direction then? Like, do you think, well, maybe I might go back and just do that for the rest of my life? Like, what led you back out into the world? And how did that transition into starting to lead you to where you are now?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. The first thing was I was trying to self-reflect. And the big thing what monk life does is that it brings self-awareness to a magnifying glass of yourself. Like you can't run away from who you truly are. And I was like, not sure I'm a monk anymore. Like I'm super rebellious. I like independence. I enjoy shifting the norm. And so like I was always like challenging ways in which stuff were done. I was like, we could do it this way. Like, we should do it this way. Like that message, we should present it this way. And I started to notice that I had this rebellious independence inside of me. And I didn't want to lose that because I identified with it as a strong trait and something I deeply believed in. So it wasn't an ego thing. It wasn't like, oh, I'm better and I know what's right. It was like, there's something here. Like that feels like I really believe in this and I want to fight for it. And so there was a part of me that got to a self-reflection and awareness of like, maybe I'm not a monk. And at the same time, my teacher, he said to me, I think you need to leave to share what you've learned. And you'll be able to share it with the world. And when he said that to me, I was like, "Oh, you're breaking up with me now." It was like all of a sudden I was like, and he was like, "It's not you, it's us," like, and all that kind of conversation. I was like, "Oh, you're breaking up with me." And so like, but he saw that in me. He was like, you're not really a monk. That was a nice way of saying, I don't think you're a monk for life. And he was right. Like I'm much happier. I was happy then, but I'm much happier now because I'm really getting to be myself. But that's the process of self-exploration. That even through all that self-awareness, I was like, oh no, I'm not built for this life. Like I'm not the right person to be here. But this was very useful in my journey. So then I came back and that was the hardest point in my life because reintegrating, I was 26 years old. I moved back in with my parents. I had my student loan and debt to pay off. All the companies in the world would not hire me anymore because I was 26 and people applying for the jobs were 21. Like I was old in the market for work. And that was where I was starting to be like, crap, what did I learn? Did I have any transferable skills? Like, is anyone going to care? Like, how do you apply for a job and on your resume it says monk for the past 3 years? Like, what do you say to convince someone that you are smart and you are clever and you've got more to give? And are people going to think I just copped out? Are people going to think that I couldn't survive in the real world and so I ran away because I was stressed? Because that wasn't the truth. I chose to be there. And so, that was like a very depressive low point in my life because...
I would imagine.
Yeah, because... reintegrating was like, it was a shock. I was like, crap, I need to think about money now. My parents aren't rich, so I'm not relying on them.
It's like reintegrating out of prison.
Literally, the only difference is you have a bunch of tools that you just forgotten you have. So like, I'm not sure, I've never been to prison for 3 years, so I don't know. Like, I don't know what it feels like of what you have as an ammunition to help your life. But for me as a monk, I did have a toolkit. It was just covered over by depression. You know what I mean? Like, it was there. I knew my tools. But it's like you just lost your toolkit in your house. Like you forgot which room you put it in. And then you're like, oh crap, like I'm not sure I'm going to solve this. So definitely the same feelings of coming out of rehab or coming out of prison. The only difference is you should have skills. And I did, just couldn't see them.
So when did that start clicking? What did you start doing that worked?
So the first thing I did was I started going to the library every day because I didn't love being around too many people. I find it hard to be around my family because a lot of my extended family was like, oh, you didn't make it as a monk? Like what happened to you? It was like you failed at being a monk. And then all my friends, I'd really disconnected from a lot of my friends. So I didn't really have people I could directly reach out to. And then I started going to the library every day and I started reading books because I was just like, I want to find the connections between what I learned and what's happening in the world. I was like, I want to find, and what you're saying about me kind of being the in-between, it was like, I was like, yeah, I learned all this amazing wisdom. I was like, how does this apply to the modern world? And so I started reading tons and tons of books. And every day I'd go into the library and spend hours there and just read and study and be like, okay, what's happening in the world? Because I didn't know who the prime minister was. I didn't know who won the World Cup. I hadn't had a social media account. So I didn't even know any of that. So I was I thought I had kept my finger on the pulse, but I was distant. And so I started to doing that. And then what I did was I started applying for jobs because I was like, I need to make some money. So I need to get a normal job. I'm going to have to figure out how to do that, but we're going to do that. I applied to like tons of companies. I got rejected by 40 companies that would have hired me before. And then finally what happened was all my friends who now worked at big companies, they were stressed and burnt out. And they were like, Jay, you must have learned about this meditation thing. And that's like 2013. This is when like meditation stuff was becoming like cool and trending. And everyone's like, Jay, did you learn about meditation and mindfulness as a monk? I was like, yeah. And they're like, well, why don't you come teach it to us? I was like, oh, okay. I was like, oh, I've got something to teach. And so I started going into these organizations and teaching execs, CEOs, companies how to meditate, wellness, health and well-being. And I started to see worth in what I'd experienced. And I was like, wait a minute, I've been taught everything that the world needs. And it took me that to see it. It took me to see my friends' pain who've been working now for 3-4 years and they feel stressed. Anyway, so that's kind of how I began sharing that message. And then 2 years later, 2016, 3 years later, that's when I was like, I want to share this message with the world, not just companies. And I'm going to try to do that through social media because I feel that videos, and there's a whole long story before that. But the point being that I was like, I don't just want to settle for corporate boardrooms and execs and CEOs. I want to try and connect with everyone in the world. I'm going to give it a go. And that was the transition there.
That's so cool. So when you were originally talking to companies and execs and stuff, was that just more like started with your friends, then word of mouth, then like,
it
I'll
was
come talk
totally
to you?
word of mouth. And I built a corporate coaching company at the start of it through word of mouth. Because my friends, luckily everyone I studied with went on to work at big companies that were having burnout challenges, that were having stress challenges. And so I was researching the science behind meditation and teaching it. And I was researching like well-being and sleep and like how much people, so I was consistently trying to find the matches between everything I learned as a monk and what was needed in the world. And it gave me so much confidence and self-worth because I was like, oh, wait a minute, I do have something to offer. So I've been at a place where I literally felt I had nothing to offer because I was like, I've been a monk for 3 years. None of this is relevant. And then I was like, oh no, wait a minute, it's all relevant.
And this also might be kind of cheesy, but I feel like a lot of people, there's a good analogy in there for people in general doubting their ability to handle a situation in their life, right? Like where you just, sometimes when you're in a stressful situation, you don't think about how much you've learned and how much you've been through and how much you actually do have. And you just think, well, I don't know, I'm not built for this. And you don't dig back into that toolkit and you know what I mean?
That's I completely agree. I think it's a great point. It's like the sun's always there, but if the clouds are out, you don't see it. But that doesn't mean the sun's gone. The sun's always out. But it's just clouded.
I think it's like the idea of the story of like you go literally learn skills for 3 years, but come back and say, well, I don't know how to deal with this. It's like that's what you just learned for 3 years.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
But you don't apply it because you've got to make the connection. That's it. You've got to make that connection. No one's going to make it for you.
That's cool.
And no, that's a great point. I'm glad you pointed that out. I wasn't even thinking about it that way. But that is a really powerful point.
So then the other thing that I love about your stuff is it seems like, because I'm very similar in the sense of, I like hearing cool strategies and stuff, but I want to know like the proof or the studies or the science of why it actually works, right? You can't just sell me on like, hey man, if you do 25 jumping jacks every morning, you'll be set. So have you done a lot of that work? You've done a lot of research?
So I studied behavioral science at university as a big part. So studying human behavior is like, I'm fascinated by it. I always have been, even before I was a monk. So for me, and even right now when I'm working on my book, what I'm currently doing right now, and I'm writing it right now, it's not coming out this year, but I'm writing it right now, I'm constantly trying to find studies that back up everything I learned. Because I believe that's so important to give people that. It's important for me too. It just cements my belief stronger. Like when I read it, it's not like, I'm like, oh, I knew that. I read it and I go, yes. Like I celebrate that because I'm like, yes, I didn't waste my time for 3 years. Like this stuff does work. And let's be honest, like the stuff that's growing in the world, like yoga, meditation, mindfulness, this stuff's been practiced for thousands and thousands of years. And there was a reason it's been around. Like, how many brands have lasted thousands of years?
Yeah.
Like, how many musicians have lasted thousands of years? But this wisdom has lasted thousands of years, which means there's some truth in it.
Yeah.
Because what else has lasted that long?
Yeah.
Right? Things that last can't be that wrong.
Yeah, so true.
So, I love finding the science behind it. It's huge.
And what would you say as far as like how much we've studied things like mindfulness and what you learned? Let's just say of what you learned with the monks, how much have we really studied? Is it like 5% of really what's there? Or?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't know what percentage to give it. I think that's a good guess.
Yeah.
Because what we've studied is mindfulness as a tool, as something you do for 10 minutes a day or an hour a day or whatever it is, as opposed to a mindset of like completely rewiring your patterns in your brain, which is really what it is. Like, you're completely rewiring your consciousness and your mind to think differently. And as crazy and hard as that sounds, the truth is we have always been wiring our brain. We're doing it right now by what we talk about, what we eat, what we watch, what we sleep. And so for me, yes, you're right. We've just scratched the surface. But the beauty of that is that that surface is a great entry point. And entry points are needed in the world. Because like you said, telling people go off and live as a monk for 3 years is not an entry point. And it wasn't my entry point either. I did a lot of work to get to that. And so, I think we've just scratched the surface. But whatever surface you're on, whether you're doing meditating for 10 minutes a day, a minute a day, 5 minutes a day, it's a great start. Like, that's amazing. Like, we should celebrate that because that's where it all begins. But I always say to people, if you can, and this is if you can take a day for a meditation retreat, if you can do a weekend, go and get immersed in something, because it's like saying, like, if you spent 10 minutes with a girl you wanted to date every single day, but you only saw her for 10 minutes a day, well, how long is it going to take to fall in love? How long is it going to figure out whether she's right or wrong? Whereas when you go meditate for a day, you'll be like, oh, wow, this stuff works or it doesn't for me, right? Or like, I know it works, but this part worked and this didn't. Whereas if you do it for 10 minutes a day, you don't necessarily figure that out quicker. So if you're someone who likes speed and likes results and likes knowing whether something works, it's better to get immersed for like a day, a weekend, or a week. Because then you get big results quicker.
Yeah, that's true. And then how did you, obviously we live in the age where everyone, is talking about personal brands and everyone's trying to figure out how to build a brand on social media and whatever. Like, you have essentially done the impossible. It's so hard to build a following, and you have a big one, and you have a lot of people really engaged and really listening to what you're saying. Obviously, there's the element that you really know what you're talking about. You're not just peddling some shit. But even with that, how do you feel like you were able to overcome the monstrous task of building a following on social media and really be able to build a life around your content and what you're doing?
I have to be honest and say that when I started, and I always give these two disclaimers, if I'm ever doing a session on social media strategy or growing your brand, and I always start with these two disclaimers. The first one is, I did not start making videos to build a brand. And the second thing is, I didn't start making videos to build a business either. I started making videos hoping that they'd resonate. Like, I didn't even know that one person would listen to my stuff. I literally made it because I literally thought this was going to be my life. I was going to work a corporate job from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I was going to edit one video a week and do this stuff on the weekends.
Just to give to the world.
Just to give to the world, because I never saw anyone make this a career. Again, this is still me at 26, 27, 28 in London. I'd never met anyone from this industry. I knew who Tony Robbins was, but I didn't know how he'd done it. I knew who someone else was, but I'd never seen the path. So I was just like, I'm just going to do this because I want to, because it's my passion. That was how I saw it. So when I did that, but I think what's made the difference is because I approached it, first of all, from that angle, I think that has a certain level of difference and authenticity and integrity to it, because there wasn't an end goal. I wasn't, I'm going to try and sell this at the end of it. I was just like, just going to share some stuff. The second thing was, I've always made content asking myself, how does someone feel after they watch this? So I don't make a video going, what's someone going to think, or what's someone going to remember, or what's someone going to know? My question when I make a piece of content is, how does someone feel when they listen to this? Because I believe that we're all feelers. I believe that we change by heart and emotion, not the head. And really, real change comes at that level. Like, you can read every advert or every note that says cigarette kills, like cigarettes kill. That's for the head. But we change, or we stop smoking when someone we love dies from something, or we stop a habit when something big happens in our life. We don't stop it from the statistic. And so for me, I was like, I want to move away from education feeling educational.
Yeah.
I want education to feel entertaining.
Yeah.
And I read a study that said the smartest people in the world, the most successful people in the world, choose education over entertainment.
Yeah.
And the most unsuccessful people in the world choose entertainment over education.
Yeah.
So I was like, how do I reach that person?
Yeah.
How do I not reach the person who wants to read a self-help book? How do I reach the person that was me?
Yep.
Right? How do I reach that kid in London who loves hip hop culture and rap music
Yeah.
and thinks he's really cool?
Yeah.
How do I reach that person? Because that's who I was.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's about entertainment first, education second. For me, it's about feeling an emotion, not, did you know that I have this website? Like, it's not about that.
Yeah.
And to me, it's not an ad. Like, I still, to this day, most of my videos don't have, like, they have ads in terms of ad revenue, but they're not promoting a product.
Yep.
Not because I don't believe that that's an important way to do it, and I'm not judging that at all. What I'm saying is I'm trying to make videos that I genuinely believe in the message.
Yeah.
And so you can do both, and anyone can balance both. But for me, it's really been about, how do people feel after they watch my stuff?
And that just worked, right? I mean, you put it on Facebook. Was that the first thing?
I started putting on YouTube.
Yeah.
My tipping point was, I started putting on YouTube. It was doing okay, 10,000 views, which is not a lot, but it's nice.
Yeah.
And organic, no paid media, never spent money on a follower or a view or an ad.
Yeah.
And then what happened was someone showed my video to Ariana Huffington at Davos.
Mm-hmm.
And Ariana Huffington sent two of her team members, Danny Shea and Dan Katz, to meet me in London. Yeah. And so I meet these two guys in an office, and I've just heard that Ariana Huffington likes my videos. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
You used to have a job at the time?
At that time, I had just quit my job to do corporate coaching full time.
Yep.
So I was doing my own thing.
Yep.
I'd quit my corporate job at the time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, this is cool. So I got to meet these two guys who are now two friends of mine, very close friends.
Yeah.
And I said to them, I was like, what do you think of the videos? They were like, we think they're amazing. And we think Ariana thinks they're amazing. I was like, okay, give me a job then. Like, where's the break here? And they were like, let's slow down. They're like, slow down. I was like too eager.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, we're going to test these videos and see how they do. And if they do well, we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So then I spent a month chasing Danny to stick to this promise. Mm-hmm. So I chased him every single day for 30 days. I was like, Danny, you promised me you're going to share my video. How are we going to do this? And a month later, we sat down with the producer. He was in New York. I was in London. I sent all my raw footage. Yeah. And then we started putting these videos out. Yeah. So we put the first video out. And the first video did 1 million views in a week. Jeez. And so that was fast, but he was still like, He wasn't impressed. I was like, all right. The second video we did 1 million views in 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And then that became a video that did like 40 million plus views.
Wow.
And then basically the 4 videos I made from them did 100 million views, and they'd never seen that level of view.
Yeah.
A few things that went right for me. First thing was I produced content that I believe was of a high level. Yeah. So the content was good. Storytelling was good. The second thing is the algorithm was in my favor at the time, and that's like a luck thing. When you start as well, it's like the algorithm is a good time to start.
Yeah.
This was 3 years ago, 2016. And then at the same time, I was getting the benefit of HuffPost distributing my work. I didn't get paid for any of that, but I was happy with it because I wanted to see if it resonated. And luckily it did. Yeah. So it was a connection of tons of stuff there. Like there's good fortune, there's good connection, but I was just pumping out my video hoping someone would see it. And I'm so glad she did. Yeah. And so that's where it really changed my life, because over a sudden, overnight, people were like, oh, who's this guy? Yeah. Like his videos have just gone viral. So
yeah, I think there's a good lesson in that, because the luck's going to come, the bad luck's going to come.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
But
I've had some of that too, yeah.
I'm sure. And the only thing in your control is putting out something that you hope makes people feel a certain way, right? I think no matter what your job is, that's true.
Yeah.
You can't plan for the luck. You can't try to manufacture the luck.
No. And you can, like now, I know, like, today people are like, yeah, you can pay for stuff with ads and et cetera, et cetera. But it depends what you want to do, right? Like for me, it's always been an impact perspective. It's always been a perspective of, and not saying that if you use ads then that you don't want impact. You can do both. Yeah. But my point is I didn't have any money for ads.
For sure. Yeah.
So I didn't have that option. You gotta work, and this is my point, that you don't have to sit there and go, oh, I don't have X amount to invest in YouTube ads. I can't do this. Yeah. And I had that limiting belief. Believe me, I pitched my idea, before I ever made a video, I pitched my idea to 40 media companies in London. Yeah. They all rejected me before an interview. I then went and pitched my idea to 2 or 3 editors at big magazines. I said, look, I will give everything, just pay me nothing and I'll do it. Yeah. So I just wanted a break. They all said to me, Jay, you're 28 years old. Media's like full of 21-year-olds. You're wasting your time. Yeah. And so I got so much pushback. And then I finally ended up at a ethnic minority TV training day run by the BBC. So I walked in this room, everyone's brown and black, and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I'm brown, you're brown. Like, there's like 5 brown people in the room. And the BBC is like, we're going to train you how to be TV presenters. And I went there to see if I had the skill and if I could network. And so I was like, okay, how does it go? And they were like, hey, Jay, you got good skills. Like, you're a good presenter. And I was like, great, give me a job. And they're like, there's no jobs in the media. And I was like, what, you brought 6 brown people here to tell us there's no jobs in the media? Like, I was like, what do I do? And they were like, start a YouTube channel. And I was like, this is before I did anything. And I was like, really? I was like, that only works for Justin Bieber. Like, I was like, who does that work for? And I had that limiting belief. Like, I cannot tell you how strong that limiting belief was. I genuinely believe that YouTube channels and Facebook pages work for 1 in a million people. I didn't believe it worked for me. But I got to a point where I'd exhausted all options. And that was the only one I had left. And that's what I'd suggest to anyone listening. If you feel you've run out of options, believe me, you haven't. Until you've tried and tested and knocked on. Like just now, I knocked on a couple of the wrong doors to get into this door because I didn't get it right. But I got it right the 3rd time.
You sure did. And nobody cares anymore.
And no one cares anymore. And the only question you have to ask yourself is, are you ready to knock on every door? And if you are, one of them's going to open up at one point. As long as you're upskilling too. Like you got to be able to walk up those stairs and be good at your skill too. And I think both of them go hand in hand. Like you've got to have the skill and then you've got to have the persistence. And often we're relying on one or the other.
Yeah, and I think most people are just petrified of that feeling that you just had an hour ago of walking into the wrong office. You know? And who cares? But that's a shitty feeling for 5 seconds.
And it was. And there were lots of those. And I think if you just keep going, you get used to the bad one. And then you feel so grateful when it happens. And that's what I feel now. I feel so humbled and grateful for all the success and all the wonderful views and support and the community I have. I feel humbled by it because it's taken so much hard work. And it's been like, there's been so many ups and downs. And now, yes, things are great and all the rest of it. But it's like, I feel grateful, man. I just feel blessed because there's been so many moments where I thought I was going to give up and crack.
I'm sure. So, and what does life look like now? So I know because I don't see you in the gym for weeks at a time. You travel a lot. Are you doing speaking? Are you working on a book? You just started a podcast?
Yeah, like, so I'm trying to cut down on traveling so much. I used to do a lot of corporate speaking, corporate coaching, and I still do that because it's a good test of my relevance too. Like when I'm speaking to a company, they're really looking at the science. They're looking, and I love that challenge of like a company inviting me to speak about something I haven't spoken about for a while. So I really enjoyed that audience. I feel comfortable with that audience because I'm ex-corporate, etc. So I feel aligned. It excites me. But I'm pulling back on a lot of traveling at the moment because, my goal is, so I still make 12 videos a month on social media that are all just my content, my storytelling, etc. And I love that. Like, that's where I get my greatest energy and passion from. And that's what brings...
Sorry.
Go for it,
Are you doing like 12 videos that go YouTube, chopped down for Instagram, all based off of those 12 videos?
Yeah, so my videos are built for one platform and then we share the same stuff across.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No, that's cool. No, it's good. Yeah, ask me any tactical questions too. But that's the goal. Like we put the same content everywhere because 12 videos is a lot. And if I had to make separate 12 videos for every platform, it'd be too complicated.
That's why I asked, because I think part of the struggle is like if you're really doing everything right, you need to populate YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, podcasts, and so I think just learning that if you start with the 12 main videos and cut them all down and put them where they belong, you can get 100 pieces of content out of it,
Correct. And also remember, build for the platform that shows you the most love, not the one you want to be famous on. So I grew much faster on Facebook than I did on YouTube. So Facebook, I'm at 20 million, YouTube, we're at 2. That's a big difference. But the point is, if I want to be a YouTuber just for the sake of saying I'm a YouTuber, you could end up losing out on a huge opportunity right here. Or like if you're like, oh, why does Instagram not grow? But maybe you're getting loads of love on YouTube. Like my point's like, don't force love. Like go with the love. Like I got a lot of love on Facebook and I went all in and it's been amazing for my life. So don't sit there and be like, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to be an Instagram model. Or I want to be this. Like do it all and see where the love comes from and then recreate for that audience.
That's huge. Okay, so keep going. Sorry, the 12 videos.
Yeah, so we make 12 videos a month. So that's my biggest passion point. That's what I love doing. Thank you for saying, we added a podcast this year on purpose. I literally launched on Valentine's Day. The first episode is me and my wife, which was a lot of fun. Second episode was Russell Brand. Third was Novak Djokovic, the tennis player. Again, a friend. Fourth was Mike Posner. So we've had some amazing guests and it mixes like, that's going to mix. Like, so those are a few well-known names, but we're mixing with like clinical neuroscientists and like PhD researchers that I geek out on. And the point of it, which I was sharing with you earlier, the point of the podcast was I wanted to give people more depth. And so I think video gives people breadth and scale and audio gives depth.
That's an incredible way to think about it.
And that's how I see it. So like a 4-minute video is going to give me scale and allow scalable people to understand me. But audio is where you get to really get to know me. You really get to know someone. You get to connect. And so for me, audio is going to add another layer for me so that people can get to know me better if they want to. And so anyone who's like, Jay, I actually want to know more about what you think every day. your wife, your personal life, all of that stuff's in my podcast.
Yeah.
And so that was the goal of the podcast. And also the deeper goal was I wanted people to see people they look up to and realize that all of them have a life on purpose. Like they're on purpose. It's deeper. It's meaningful. It's not just because they were a tennis player, just because they wanted to be rich, just because they were funny. There was something there. Or if there wasn't there at the start, that's what started to be useful and important after the success came in.
For sure. Because anyone who's lasted either had it or found it.
Correct.
You know what
Correct.
I mean?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, exactly. That's beautifully said. And I completely agree with that. So that's the podcast. I'm writing my book right now.
Amazing.
It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. But again, when I start any art, I want to be an artist. I don't want to do it because I can.
Yeah.
And so when I did podcasts, I was like studying interviews, watching my favorite ones for a long time before I became an interviewer. And same with my book. I've been studying writing and understanding how to write a great book before I become an author.
Yep.
Because I don't want to be an influencer who wrote a book. I want to be an author who writes a book.
Yep.
Because I love mastering an art. Like I get like a personal buzz out of that.
Yeah.
And then it becomes easier because you're like, oh, I studied this, I can do this, as opposed to like, oh crap, I don't have to write a book.
Yeah.
So I'm working on my book right now. Very excited about that.
Will the book be like life story or?
Correct. It won't be a memoir, but I will intertwine personal stories and stories that I love with lessons from them, but practical lessons of like, this is what you do today.
Yep.
So the person sitting at home, don't worry, it's not a book on how to meditate. It's not a book on how to become a monk. It's not a book on how to be spiritual. It's a book on saying, I get where you are right now.
Yeah.
This is what you can do right now today, pinpoint, practical
Thank God.
tips.
I love that about your stuff. I just have to say the
Thank
fact
you,
that you back it up with things like studies and research and that it's practical, do this today. I just think there's so much like lofty, you know what I mean? And people, you can read 100 self-help books or anything like that and be like, I don't know what to do tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's so important.
Yeah, and for me, it's all inspired by a piece of wisdom from Albert Einstein where he said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it well enough.
Yep.
And that's my measure of if I deeply understand something.
Yep.
So until I can explain something really, 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 really simply, I'm like, I don't actually get it. I'm just trying to sound smart.
Yeah.
And so that's my personal challenge to myself daily.
Yep.
So I'm working on the book. The podcast is out. I set up a company last year with my good friend Alex called Icon Media. And Icon Media is all about helping influencers, authors, experts, and brands that I believe have a purpose go viral.
Yep.
So we build video and viral video for a ton of different entrepreneurs, healthcare brands, etc. People that we think are trying to do cool work and using what I've learned in the process to do it for them too.
That's huge.
And so that's a lot of fun. And then I have my online coaching community where we coach thousands of people from over 140 countries that are coming back every week to get a coaching curriculum. And that's like real impact for me. So this is the thing I talk about everywhere right now because I love it. I literally can go through my phone, which is charging right now, with every meetup I have in every city where people watch my stuff and are part of my coaching group.
Wow.
So this week alone, we'll have potentially anywhere from 10 to 50 meetups all over the world where I'm not even physically there and people who watch my stuff are getting together to connect and build tribe.
That's
and community.
incredible.
So for me, that's very fulfilling.
Yeah.
So when I am in a city next year, I'm going to plan on dropping by, but we haven't done that yet. So
How cool. And that's all organized on the platform?
Yeah. So it's organized through my membership site online. It's also organized on Facebook groups. If someone's a part of my membership group, they get access to that.
That's huge.
Yeah,
man, I just am a big fan of what you're doing. And I think that it's very hard for like, the same way I kind of explained, it's hard for young people to find out how to build a following, but it's also really hard for adults with a following to figure out how to really build a business around it. You know what I mean? And it's really easy to have a following that doesn't generate a lot of money.
Tell
or
me about it.
Maybe you're doing weird brand deals or, you know what I mean? Like it's a very undefined path in life. And so I think anyone that has been able to actually build an infrastructure around that and make it way more than just a following and views, I am a super, big fan of because it's really hard. There's no blueprint.
Yeah, and I know what that feels like. I had 100 million views and I was 4 months away from being broke.
Yep.
So I know what that feels like. And that was 2017.
Yep.
I had 100 million views and I was 4 months away from being broke.
Yep.
And I was just like, I need to figure this out. Not because I wanted to do it, because I was like, I can make better videos when I can invest more money in my videos. And now I have a team of 4 editors and videographers. We have a team of people doing online work. Like it's a real operation.
Yeah.
It's not just one person. And I have to figure out how to monetize my life because I can't create more value if I'm always scraping the barrel and going, crap, I need to take that average brand deal and sell some stuff I don't believe in because of this. And I think a lot of influencers are chasing the big Prada Gucci deal. And I'm like, that's good for your vanity, but it's not good for pocket because then you're just waiting for the next deal. And I never wanted to be in that space where I was waiting for the next deal and not creating from my heart. So I was like, I asked myself this question. I was like, how do I monetize the hell out of my head so I can create from my heart? And that's what I did. So we set up, I have 4 businesses now. We have Icon Media, video company. Second is my corporate coaching company. Third is my online coaching company. And fourth is the business of me in terms of views, brand, etc. So that's just one area of a big spectrum. And this year we added the podcast and the book. So it's like, it's and I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. So that's coming from someone who never believed and actually never met an entrepreneur till I was like 26 or something like that. So, but I had to figure out because I was in pain. Like I was 4 months away from being broke. I got married a year before that. And I was like,
you have no other option.
Yeah, I had no other option.
Okay, 2 last questions.
Awesome.
Number 1, if you could prescribe the entire world to do something for 30 days and they all had to do it, what would they have to do?
Oh, wow, that is such a good question. Do you ask this to everyone?
No, I just came up with it.
Oh, wow, that is such a great question.
Because I just came up with, like, there's so much in there that you could give to people, but let's just say they had to do something.
That is a great question. Let me think. Can I think for a moment?
Of course.
This is like
Of course.
That is one of the best questions I've ever been asked in my life. I should know the answer, but
It's
I
okay,
really
take your
want to be
time.
careful.
We'll edit it.
I want to be careful.
We'll
No.
edit it
I'm happy for you to not edit. I like it. Let me think.
Good.
This is good. Yeah, it's a meditated answer. Yes. Okay, I've got it.
Got it?
Yes.
What is it?
Do not complain, compare, or criticize for 30 days. I think your life will change. I always say to people, don't complain for 24 hours. Tell me how it felt. And so if you could not complain for 30 days.
Even in your head?
Even in your head.
If you catch yourself
You
doing
can catch yourself. You're always going to... Okay, so that's a really good point. You're always going to complain in your head. That's never going to go away. You're just going to get quicker at spotting it and stopping it. And that's what all that monk training does is like, it's not that I never think of anything negative. It's just that I think of it, but I think of it for less time. And it affects me less. That's the only difference. So yeah, 100%. So don't complain. And if you can add compare and criticize for 30 days. And if that sounds scary right now, do it for 24 hours and just literally notice how your life changes. And I don't mean stop it like, oh, I'm complaining. Oh, I can't complain. Heal it, work through it. Like go like, why am I complaining? What's there to complain about? There's stuff to be grateful for. Like just go through that. Like do that process. Don't just go, oh, I can't complain. I'm going to box it because that's just going to come back later. But just work through it. But if you don't complain for 30 days, oh my God, you'll just see solutions and opportunity and you'll see like synergy happening and so many things will just happen when you don't complain. Like even I get into bad habits. Like there was an event a couple of weeks ago or an event recently where I was complaining on going there. Even I was complaining. I was like, oh, I'm so tired.
Oh yeah, that's
like,
me every
Like
event.
I was tired. Like, why am I going to this? I'm like, oh, I'm getting invited to go to this amazing event, but here I am being ungrateful. I'm like, oh God, I have to go out and I need to show up to this. And I'm, my ego's taking over.
Of course.
And then I went out because I'd promised myself to a friend that I would go out. So I went out based on the fact that I'd promised the person whose thing it was that I was going out. And not only did I feel really happy that I did it for him afterwards, on my way out that day, which I stayed for the whole event, even though I was really tired, I had a synergy connection happen with someone highly influential and respected came out to me and just like, Jay, I've loved your work. I've seen it for a while. I would never have met that person. And they were just like, I love what you're doing. And I was just like, he loves what I'm doing. Here I am being ungrateful, not taking my own advice. And here is the universe reciprocating with me. What an idiot I am. Like, I was just looking at that going, I'm such an idiot. Like, and it made me realize again, I was like, even if that didn't happen, the feeling of supporting my friend was important. And so I'm not saying go out and support your friends and go out to events every night because I don't either. You have to know your balance and your limits. But I get in that zone too. Like
I'll tell you, I started doing like recently because one of my biggest things, I would say like I come to the office every day. I'm a pretty responsible dude. I'm pretty accountable, there for my team. All that's really important to me. My biggest weakness is the events that I just should go to for no defined reason
me too.
at night, right?
Yeah, me too. And I sleep early.
Yeah, man. And I just like, I feel like I did my work. I just want to be left alone, like whatever. So the point is I started, it's a reoccurring problem. So I started writing how I felt before the dreaded event.
Nice.
What I was worried about. I don't want to go. I just had a long day. I deserve to relax, whatever. And then I started writing how I felt when I got home. And every time, my thoughts about it leading up were not anywhere near what actually
That is
happened.
beautiful. I
And
love
almost
that.
every time I had something like what you're saying, where I was like, it was so good to see blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And I ran into whatever, and I built a better friendship with, you know what I mean? And it just really exposed. You know,
Expose is the right word.
that-
That's
that
beautiful.
issue.
I love that exercise.
Yeah.
That's a great one. That's really nice.
Because then you look at it, then you have to be completely stupid to look at 5 of those in a row and then do it on the next one. Right?
Yes.
It starts to
Yeah.
weaken that
Yes.
complaining. Great. I'm going to try that for 20. I'm going to try
24
the
hours.
30-day,
Yeah.
the 30-day challenge.
Yeah.
And the other big thing that I wanted to point out was I think a lot that changed for me is when you said you're going to complain, but catch it and move away from it, because I think what a lot of people do, what I used to do, is you would say, okay, don't complain for 24 hours. I'd say, okay, easy. I'd start complaining in my head, and then I'd start complaining that I was complaining, and then you're a loser because you're complaining, and Jay said not to complain, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and you overthink it.
Yeah, as opposed to going the other way and just saying, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Let me move on.
That's it. Don't ever try and stop negative thoughts coming to your mind.
Yep.
It's just you're losing already.
Yep.
Just watch them, spot them, and then heal them, right? Like, that's the way.
Yep. Okay, last one. If you could travel back in time, let's say, you know what? I'm going to pick a specific time and say you got in that car wreck.
Yep.
Your parents came out. You go back home at night. I'm guessing you weren't feeling too great. You're in your bedroom. Jay of today can pop into little Jay's room for a second. What do you tell yourself?
Ooh. I would tell myself to not beat myself or judge myself, not beat myself up or judge myself. I would tell myself that your identity can be constantly reconstructed. And so this identity you have right now is not eternal or forever. You don't have to accept it as your reality if you don't want it to be. And I would have said that just start focusing on surrounding yourself with people you truly believe are happy and successful. You know, stop wasting time on surrounding yourself by people who are acting successful or cool. Start hanging around with people that are genuine and figure out what those genuine values are.
Yep.
You know, like figure out people with those real values.
Yep.
And then start spending time with those people. That's going to change your life. So yeah.
There it is.
Thanks, man. That was a lot of fun, man.
Jay, thank you.
You asked
man.
me so many questions I've never been asked before, which is always a fun interview for me.
Yeah.
Second of all, like I've shared so many things on this interview that I've never said before.
That's so good.
Which is awesome.
That's what I want,
And on top
man.
of all of that, like, yeah, I love this, man. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much,
Yeah, you
man.
made it so fun. You're a great interviewer, man.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
for
you're
doing
awesome
it. I
at
feel like
this,
we got
yeah.
a good, unique.
Yeah,
No
me
matter
too.
when you become like the next, whatever you're going to become, well, this interview will always live.
I appreciate
as a
that,
moment
man.
in time.
You're kind, man. I appreciate
you,
it.
brother.
Thank you so much, bro.
Yes.
Thanks so much. I
I'll
love it.
see you on Monday in the gym.
Guys, if you like that and you want to see more like it, as well as vlogs, other web series, and all the random stuff that I'm doing here on YouTube, don't forget to click that subscribe button. You won't regret it, I promise.